Okay, so here we are just after and still very much under the influence of the final full moon of this astrological year. It was right about this time that this channel really was birthed last year, and what an incredible cycle we have been through. I feel like the moon card came out because it was important for me to acknowledge the Six of Wands, the magic and the success and the appraisal. I mean, what would you do if you knew that in a year's time the work that you had put into something would reap these rewards? And that's what I was asked a year ago. And in that year's time, detaching from how immediate the success was, or whether or not I couldn't, none of that really could matter with this channel. It couldn't really matter what other people thought, um, what was going on outside of me, out beyond the context of just like channeling and delivering messages. It couldn't be influenced by that. And if I were to stay true to that mission and that goal, then I would find this inevitable success and demand, because the answers that have been unlocked with these moon cycles alone. We spent such an intentional year with the moon. It's probably been about 4 years that I feel like Dennis and I have really been linked with the moon cycles, and it's been really special to watch how that sort of magic can really evolve our lives. And so I'm at that place again where what I was able to unlock is now also something that is in high demand, meaning like there is a need for the same need that you felt internally while you were doing all this with maybe no external validation of its accuracy or its effectiveness, or just trusting that it was changing your life and that had to be enough, and I think for a lot of people, we hide from that truth. Nothing in our life really acknowledges maybe the needs we might have at a personal level. Like there is this level of impersonalness that most of us were governing ourselves by, and we're spending all of our time trying to remain within. And I think that that's just the reality right now. It's kind of a cold hard reality, because this isn't served. You can't fake your way to this. There's the only way to feel this would be in an embodied way if it was actually true for you. So this is also not like, this isn't a holistic energy, and I'm allowed to, and there's no real permissions, but I'm allowed to really express the narrative that is very true for what I've put in as an individual, beyond just like sharing this recording. But to also understand that this is like a whole nuanced energy that also has the pole, which is that it isn't being experienced or what it may be like. So the focus of this message is really look at an astrological year in review. You know what I mean? Because that's where we really are. That's what we're really approaching. This sort of year in review. And if you can look back at each of the phases and say that these lunar phases were checkpoints, and how many of these would you have a green check for, and how many of them would have been failed attempts when it came time. And so this culmination, this ending, this demand, right? You will always be in demand, but it depends on what it is that is requesting you, and whether that's aligned with what you would have really wanted in the highest timeline. And as I just shuffled this deck, 10 of Pentacles is at the bottom of the deck, right? This is the day that the 10 of Pentacles really truly comes in. This is the time right at this new year, because again, we have a lot of that Piscean and Aries energy, which is endings and beginnings, meeting in that point of, again, could be sort of a point in which all the elements meet. So like stormy, right? It could be, and given your walk with the previous year and the previous lunar cycle, like by this point you should know that a storm is the biggest indicator of arrival, right? Like when we all meet at the point, that is the synchronicity that we're looking for. But to have that awareness would mean you'd have to have weathered the storm and have the proof at a cellular level that that is the truth. And so
Again, this is a time of reflecting on choices in whole, based on who you are now, based on what you know now. What can you decide for yourself is true? What have you built? Because something is built. What's a part of what you have built? What is the source of what you're building? What is at the root of what you are trying to build? I think all of that is going to be up for review. You understand what I mean? Up for review. And as I was doing this hangman energy, because at the same time, if it's not the Ten of Pentacles, it could also be the Hanged Man, which is, you'll be looking at a Ten of Pentacles and wondering whose that is. Whose is that? And you'll see that some of you are receiving things that you can't feel yourself in them. And that is where you then need to review what worlds you were creating and for who. Because you can only be the creator of your world, yet I don't think this world that you were making was for yourself. For you, for who you actually are. So we're going to get into all of that today. I am just clearing my decks. I love that was the Moon card, was the first card to come out, and this Moon card in the Venetian Tarot, which is the energy that I was really feeling, right, is just so there's this twin energy, there's this duality energy, there's this sacred portal energy, there's this tuning fork I'm almost seeing. I don't know where I heard that. Right? It's like spending all this time to craft a handmade tuning fork, and it's tuned to the wrong frequency or something. So we're going to get into the energy today, because there's so much to unpack, and it's my right to unpack it as a reader and as someone who has to really reiterate that, again, like, I believe that what I do will be needed, you know what I mean? That's so funny. I just went through and flipped all of these upside down, or right side up just now. You just saw me do all of that. Yet the bottom of the deck had Lapis Lazuli in the reverse, and that's the self-knowledge card. So the biggest way to fail the test is to not know who you are. Every test, trial, tribulation, lesson, blessing that you go through is to bring you back to the singular awareness of who and what you are. And some people have been searching for that. But you can't buy self-knowledge. You can't fake the funk. You can't pretend it. You can't do anything. It's only achieved by the radical acceptance of what is. You see these orbs on the screen. And that having something to do with the balance of the female power, right? Because there is this sort of revival. Oh my God, as I said, the balance of the female power, I didn't even look down, and there's the balancing card, right? There is this revival of this healthy feminine energy, which is healthy creations, creating life that is good for us instead of creating life that does not serve us, making creations that don't actually serve and support the pre-existing life from which it came from. That is the ancient root of this war that's being waged towards ourselves at this time. Do you know how to create something that supports you as its creator? Got a lot of energy out right now. Lapis Lazuli, Lepidolite, Cuprite, and Tiger's Eye. The biggest energy is the love, right? Because what is your relationship to the love vibration? Do you believe that, that the love could stop flowing to you in some way? have an intimate relationship with a cutoff? A time where you can definitely justify that the love doesn't extend? That do you constantly dig for that moment, that edge in everything you do to make people, to try to push people to that edge because you just want to know what their breaking point is? That you just want to know what you do and when you do it that would be enough for them to cut the love off? Because you want to re-wound that, you want to rewind that. Sometimes making whole personalities, developing whole relationships, deep, intimate relationships with people that you realize in an instant, this was all about you just investigating how far this person will go until they give up on you. And then you realize how delusional you'd have to be to get there. When did your life become about testing all the things that love you most to not be you, to be the version of you that wants no part of them, wants to be disconnected, wants to be isolated? We have to look at that wound. Because the self-knowledge was in reverse, right? And let me tell you something. I've got good news. It's amazing for me. The awareness that I have of myself, the awareness that my partner, literally, my union has of itself, and the work and the feats that we are breaking through at this time, it is materializing the core essence of something so much bigger than I ever thought I could go on to be. So that is the good news about what is promised at the end of this journey, one of self-knowledge, acceptance, female creative power, and balance. Because honoring who you are is the only time that a dream really matters. You are the only thing that matters. Because the dream coming in will always be filtered through you and your experiencing of it. So at the end of the day, you really matter. How you feel about this, the relationship it has to you, is all there really is. There is no singular truth that maybe you and I could even ever find. It may be true that that's the reality of things. So your relationship to the thing is really all that matters. And you're finding that you can't hide anymore. Because in front of everyone's eyes, we all see that that this is so detached. You've been hiding, running behind things because you know that you're the creator. You know that. You know there is a creator, and that creator is you. You know you're the one responsible for all of this. Everything in your life, good and bad, happy and sad, that's in your life. You know it's yours. So to be the creator and to not choose or commit to your highest timeline and then run. Or, as we say, give our power away. We more so throw our power away because it's not fair to whom or what we throw it at either. It's not helping them think or feel or see things more clearly. I mean, in the end, it will lead to awareness, but at what expense? Selfishness. Are you being selfish at all if you're ever hurting yourself? Selfishness has the vibration of inherently only really ever caring about what happens with you. This is why I love Aries energy. Because as an Aquarius, I know Aries, the divine child, the seed, knows all the answers. And I say that with my chest. One of my biggest nurtures in my life is a double Aries. Aries sun, Aries moon. And the awareness that they have, that they only know themselves. They only really know themselves. But when you think about that with a child, before the influence, we spend our whole lives trying to get back to that childlike awareness of ourselves before we bartered parts of ourselves away in exchange for palpableness in a society that is fictional, who acknowledges lines of connection that are actually truly invisible and not real, versus the real connectedness that exists that we could so easily acknowledge. I mean, we're really talking about Aries energy being so, and again, think, and this might be a collective meditation. Think about what your perceptions of Aries energy are. That might be another message. What are your perceptions of that? Because a lot of people have inner child wounding, which is largely in part what you might really resent about an Aries energy. So what a lot of you might be resenting about your new start, right? Because every new start is Aries. It's Fool energy. So you might really be resenting these new beginnings that are coming to you because you have a wounded child. You resent the fact that that new beginning will go on without you, living in a freedom that you don't really have. Why don't you really have that freedom? How come it's arrived for you and you don't have that? You're still not. There's still a lock on it. What? Come on, man. So you resent it. You resent Aries because they know themselves and what they'll always be able to do, which you don't give yourself or allow yourself to have, is to say what is you. Because you can't acknowledge that you've traded parts of yourself for the bullshit to be liked, rather at the expense of yourself. This is what people don't want to say. This is what people don't want to see. They don't want to talk about the price they sold their soul to the devil for, let alone that they sold it at all. To some of us, we're like, phew. They don't want to talk about how little they gave it up for. Whew, somebody needed to hear that. Somebody needed to hear that. This is the message that goes global. I really feel that way. We have to get into that. Because some of you, when we're talking about Pisces, Aries, meaning there's an end and a new beginning always tethered to one. And the fact of the matter is, delaying these endings, stalling out in the Piscean, letting the fish spin on itself. When a stream has opened up and you can go and you can be released from the pond back to the full water source. That transcendence, that death, that bigness, that return. And this is beyond the death. This is the returning to the actual essence. This is after the journey. Pisces. Stalling out, delaying the inevitable return back to the biggest water source. I feel like that's the weight on the back that is felt at this time as well. How apprehensive are you to go back to the unity consciousness, the one love, the I am, the big river in which you actually flowed from, because you were contained for so long, spinning in a circle until you understood how big you were. And sometimes you can only learn how big you are by being so cramped up in a tight, confined space where you know you're too big for it. And you have muscle aches and deformations now and bad posture because you've been putting yourself physically in this little tiny box pond that you've been forced to swim in, and you're fed at a regular rate, so you grow at a regular rate, but you're not, your environment, it just only ever feels painful. I have all of the elements right now. Wind, water, earth, and fire. When we talked about that culmination at the beginning of this video, when we talked about this last lunar cycle, this last solar cycle, when we talked about what we're really completing in regards to some of our outer and inner planets and the movements and cycles they're closing and beginning. We have to look at all of this, because the inevitable that is helping someone like myself really deal with and hold space for what a lot of people are living in, which what I would call is a self-imposed lack of flow, right? There's a lot of people who have this awareness of the inevitable. When we talk about the inevitable, it's where you go when you stop trying, when there's no effort to be alive outside of your conscious breath, when you return to the awareness of life, force, energy, to the awareness of coming online, to being conscious. When you come to consciousness, that's what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? That place that you'll return to when all the charades, all the things you want us to believe about who you think you want us to know you are, really are rendered useless to what you really are. And at that point, when you go back to what you really are, outside of the effort and the trying and the cycles and the resistance and when you let go and you surrender to let yourself, what pumps from your heart, what broadcasts from your heart, when you let that be at the foundation of what walks you through your life and pumps all of your energy, when you look at that state, because some of you have neglected it for so long, it has been so strained, and I hold space for that, but you got to connect with this ray energy, this high frequency, the strength of the heart. If anything, no matter where you're getting spit out at this time, understand the strength of your heart. I mean, come on. Because to come back from that, to have this awareness, no matter what or how late you may have realized this, to have awareness at any point, it's like it all really gets reduced down to the heart, down to the love, down to that space. Even when we run, even when you can't not make it about that space. So the cracking open and the exposure, the light that's finally able to touch the heart, because some of you know how hard your heart works, how much it loves, how deeply it loves, and that's exactly the reason why you've built so much on top of it, because you couldn't dream of a day where your heart is damaged, but you having to be brought to the humility that is the exact thing that has been weakening your heart, cutting it off from life force at its own expense, under the guise that you are somehow soothing your heart in some way. That revelation can be hard, hangman. That awareness, that enlightenment can be difficult, can feel like a blood rush to the head. That could it have been that in the end, my own efforts were the only enemy that was ever really there. I created that enemy. And these are the cycles that it will take. You have to enter into the pyramid of your own history, who you've always been. I mean, this takes nothing. This takes sitting. This takes breathing. This takes being the person to say what it is. You know, we know, I know. So if we all know, what is it? And whatever it is, that's the self-knowledge that you need to sit in. Not just good and bad. What is it, though? It being you. What has it always been? What have we been circling? What have we been released back into? Why am I apprehensive or resentful of these new beginnings that I've created? Well, you're resentful of the creator. Who do you think the creator is? We think the age of the Aquarian is going to come more like satire than anything. Because it says, silly goose, you all projected that God was outside of you to not take accountability. That's what Aquarius says. Aquarius says, there's no doomsday, there's nothing fucking alien about it. I'm just not afraid to say that I'm the one who did this. I'm the one who created this. Aquarius is full responsibility in that way. Saturn is its ancient ruler, right? Beyond as far as the known goes, Aquarius is that. And that's the painful authenticity. That's the sort of outcasted energy that Aquarius can know all too well, because it is what it is. You understand? So this portal of self-awareness is what generates this sort of idea of a God complex. Oh, but with Aquarius, it's not a complex. It's the truth. Aquarius enlightens. We're not talking about being a God in theory. People think that Aquarius is like playing God. Like, no, we're not playing God. You really run this whole thing. And so you could disagree with how Aquarius has to detach or move themselves or shift the water or pour out this or empty that or refill this. But what's really happening is when you realize you created the vase. So if the vase is too heavy or it's not comfortable, or you have no real way to hold it, or it's painful, or it in any way doesn't fit, you created it. And Aquarius has the awareness that how much it has to carry is based on what it carved out. Don't be mad at the world that you've got a lot on your plate, and you'll always have a lot on your plate because you chose this life, this energy, this incarnation. And this isn't about whether you believe. This isn't something to believe in. This objectively, scientifically calculates, if you were to test this theory, that you were the creator of your life, and you had to test that hypothesis, that would require you to take full accountability for everything that happens. That's what makes Aquarius out there. That's what makes Aquarius beyond, because people don't want to believe that it comes from them, that everything comes from them. The age of Pisces was more of a, like, I don't want to be it. We want to live out that sort of slavery psychology, because it really just means that we are enslaved to the source of another thing. Like, we will always need this other source. People don't want to believe in the alien concept that you don't have to have another source. It doesn't have to be something outside of you. That's what Aquarian really embodies. The God body, the crystalline body. The naked, vulnerable human, when you realize, like, you are in the image of everything around you in this realm that we live in. So go beyond me telling you a philosophy or a religious or spiritual theory. This is none of that. This is saying, if all realities are possible, then let's look at this one. The one where you are the creator of what the fuck is going on externally and internally. If you ran with that, because the universe is saying you can go at any time, and I promise you, you don't have to believe in reincarnation, because you will have no conscious awareness about your next lifetime. This is just about how matter cannot be destroyed. So if you really just subscribe to science, you could never really be destroyed. And what really makes you is the breath of it all. You're looking at this animated person talk to you on this screen, right? What is that, right? We talk about the strength of the heart. What is that? It's a whole lot of things, physical and spiritual. So whatever part of it that keeps going, and whether you feel like you are only comfortable thinking of everything in a conscious human third dimensional realm, like heaven is going to be a place when I die, I'm going to have another experience that feels like this, where I can say I'm in heaven and I'm talking to angels and blah, blah. But the reality is you'll probably never be back in this conscious thought. So there's nothing to fear. Because you won't even perceive even beyond death. It's not this again. You know, Alexis Taylor and all the thoughts and densities and the impressions and the experience of this stay here and regrow the rest of this planet. But the eternalness of what that is, this is a much higher up thought than even, it's bigger. It can include that. There is a unity. It's just, you have to acknowledge your own limitations if you really want to seek unity. You know what I mean? This truly is a message for the planet, you know, about what's happening at this time and what we're looking at with the last year in particular. And as we've unpacked and as we've looked at all of these new things that regard the knowledge of ourselves. Because you see how deep that can go. You see how much work you may or may not have to do to really be open to who you are. Because the longer we don't want to know self, the longer we want to just everything to be destroyed. Everything is in perfect harmony. All things natural, like literally, our awareness of the things around us, our relationships to the unknown, our relationships to other, like we fit in our hierarchy and our higher, like in the divine synastry and orchestration of it all. So blindness, to not want to know and see and feel and any of it, to not to be limited in what is, to not want to see yourself is the surefire way to have the chaos continue. You know what I mean? Into a certain whatever. But chaos doesn't reign, it doesn't. Because if you wanted to know what was there, if you wanted to integrate to what you're experiencing, I think a lot of us don't realize how much we stay in the spirit of things and never actually engage with the experience. Like I would say probably the majority of energies and consciousness that roam this planet don't really choose to actually engage with what's being experienced. They really still think of the circumstances, this is really something separate of me. That being in this body isn't something that I'm controlling, I'm just witnessing. How do you want to deal with it? I mean, if Aquarius is looking at it this way, if I'm going to have at most 150 years, let's just say, possible with this physical vessel, what in the world? If you're going to have to be tethered, and this is really where, what Tethered Studios really is and what produces all of this and where all of this will be housed. It's what are we doing with that tethered experience? You know what I mean? And what perception of that experience actually will support us to get the most out of the fact that we have to experience said relationship, being in a body, you know what I mean? So and maybe that's your free will to decide how you want to relate to the body, but move out of the way for those of us who want to embrace the age of the Aquarian that says, let's try living this way. That says, as I'm walking around and I'm doing the thing, I'm actually in this. It's me. You can reject it and accept it and not accept it and try to change it and modify it and identify it and categorize it. But none of that really matters because it's really just all about dropping in and being in the thing. It's yours if you want it. You know what I mean? Because we can spend so much time because it's not for everybody, or the mythology that came with the age of Pisces, where form can be manipulated to convey truth. Pisces is storytelling. It could be white lies. It can be fabrication. It can be the drama of how we can convey how it feels, you know what I mean? Someone may have died peacefully in their sleep, but if that was someone you loved, it feels like storms and clouds opened above and God came out. It's mythology. Piscean is how we get ancient stories. It's how we get the Bible. It's whether this really happened or if it just felt that way doesn't matter, because it led and motivated people to go on and do this very real thing. So that's the domain of Pisces. And so Pisces can find a way to detach from that tethered experience in order to reach ideals, but maybe not always bringing the self with. So that's why right now everything you're creating is coming down. This isn't a matter of whether someone deserves it or not. This isn't even a basis of karma. This is yes, congratulations, you cracked the code. Manifesting, what y'all all believe in higher power, because if you believe in manifestation, you can bite off these weird, sort of neo-spiritual terminologies that just kind of float around. We all engage with them because they are all imprints and basis of the divine truth that just is, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, we're all realizing that this is all spell work and that it all really can happen, Absolutely. But again, what you make happen, you don't want your manifestation to arrive before you have arrived at your own understanding, before you have arrived and accepted who you are, because you can make the dream world happen. You can do it. You're seeing it, you're feeling it, you get it. Congrats, there it is. Things that maybe you had been swearing in all these past cycles, how much you were pining after. Well, there it is. And the overwhelm or underwhelm or the ecstasy or the joy or the pain and the sorrow of that being made true tells more about the nature of the creator than anything. You know, the other day I saw these birds, well, yesterday, we made it to the water, which is so amazing to have ended out this whole cycle back at the water, you know, and all the steps that I've taken in this year and all the balance that I really have come into in this year 6 for myself with alongside my partner has just been so grounding. But when I was on the water, I mean, I saw some new duck species that were new, that weren't there just 2 seasons ago. And I was really thrilled because I was just like, look at some of these new species. And they had the most, I mean, God is an artist, because they had like crazy primary colored faces, like a blue dot here and then an orange under eye and then like a red like if their feathers were just crazy pops of color, you know. And I just thought to myself about how much it's there, you know, in the reality of just its specificity, how designed it all really was and is. And so just simple awareness when we talk about female power, and when we talk about that there was never a absence of, like, when we talk about the magnitude of someone's power, like what it can actually do, what weight it actually holds, that can never be out of balance, masculine and feminine. It's equal parts. Now, the cycles may match up synchronistically, like if a feminine or female energy and a power or a creative power, let's say synonymously, is, and when I say creative, I'm not talking about some subjective, what I think is creative. I mean like to create something is a female principle, a feminine principle. And this is all making up a whole. These are aspects of a whole. You don't even have to, it doesn't really have to be anything. Not really, so little has to do with life on earth. Like really so little. So just know that. Like just know that wherever your mind could go throughout any moment is all about you and not about anything else. So again, coming to the awareness of how we even look at information and receive information, like when we're talking about these principles of creation and the responsibility that has. We have to take responsibility for what we create. Period. You have to know what the fuck you're creating first and foremost. That's the first step. Then we can get around, once we know what it is that we do, what we make out in the world, what ripples and wave we're sending out, then we've got to accept the fact that we've been doing that. Because whether you come to a higher awareness and disagree completely with the behavior, or whether no matter how differently you may feel, you have to accept that at some point this is what you were choosing to create. Then we come into the power of it all, the place where you can actually choose something different. And in that choice incites the overall balance. Tiger eye. And I'm hearing the term like an eye for an eye will leave the whole world blind. And I don't think that that's literally even saying what it's saying. It's saying that if we always navigate from a place of, I need this for that. Because there's the highest truth, and we know we're on a spectrum of evolution, up and out endlessly, right? So to really know balance is that these scales don't, it's not even always that they are perfectly still, but that even when they're rocking, at any point, if you would freeze frame, the weight would be evenly distributed based on the force and the directions that they're also going. It's always balanced. These two are balanced. It's about knowing that no matter which way it's tipping right now, these two are equal forces. You have the power, no matter how much you feel really deficient in one aspect of your life and really proficient in another aspect of your life, you're in balance. You are whole. So tempering as the waves of change start to really wash over this process that we're looking at. You know what I mean? Can be huge. Can be truly astounding. So I feel like I'm gonna wrap here. This is just a message. I just feel like it gives some context to where we are. And I'm just so grateful. I'm gonna go run to the bathroom. Okay.